What you're about to watch is not game theory optimal.
My God.
We're about to look at two street poker hands that I thoroughly enjoyed watching.
This is just fantastic.
And I'm going to try to get inside the head of these players, all of which I've played quite a bit with over the years. Let's start with this clash between Andrew Robl and Matt Kirk. These are two players who I played in the cash game with. I got very familiar with each of their games. As you'll see here, both of them are quite capable.
Robl in the big blind has Queen 5 of diamonds. What's he up to here?
Well, it looks like he might be up to something, but one would think that he would simply fold. But whenever Matt Kirk is involved...
What do you have, Matt? You have like 300?
It's right here.
There's both the potential for big action and the potential for Kirk to have a weak hand.
How about a 4-bet to 50,000?
The hand starts with Patrick Antonius straddling to $1,600. Paul Newey raises to $4,500, and Matt Kirk decides to 3-bet to $18,000. Now, Andrew Robl is sitting in the big blind with Queen 5 suited, which is a very easy fold, but he decides to put in the cold 4-bet. So what might he have been thinking? Well, Paul Newey is a recreational player. Matt Kirk is hyper-aggressive and does like to, in general, attack recreational players in the game. So I think Andrew felt that Matt was super wide here with this 3-bet, which I think is totally true. Matt also has this tendency to, as the stakes get bigger, fight harder. I don't know how long the straddle was on for, but if it's a recent straddle, Matt is more likely to go for it. Matt is also somebody who adjusts his game a lot based on how he's been doing, winning or losing, and he is very much prone to tilt. Not tilt in a way that he plays just terribly, but he tilts in a way where he just wants to gamble more. So Andrew Robl, Queen 5 suited, decides to put in the cold 4-bet. Now, if Matt's in one of those modes where he's looking to gamble, he's actually not going to fold hands like King 6 suited to the cold 4-bet. So it becomes pretty iffy, even if you are quite sure that Matt's range is wide, because he's going to make you play a flop and take it away later. And if you hit something, you're in trouble.
Everybody else falls to Matt Kirk.
Queen 5 suited isn't the hand you necessarily expect to see when you're looking at a cold 4-bet to 50,000. But I got to tell you, AJ, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to...
And he 5-bets to 100,000.
Well, I'm curious no more. I have my answer. Wow.
As it turns out, Matt doesn't just continue with a call. He actually puts in the 5-bet. I think being out of position, he didn't want to call and check and face a c-bet and have to check raise or do something else to win the pot. He wanted to take it down with the betting leads. So even if Andrew doesn't fold now, Andrew could fold the flop to a small c-bet, and Matt doesn't have to put in a ton of money to win the pot. As far as whether I like these plays or not, it's really hard to comment because they are both so far off of the optimal game tree that it really comes down to reading each other. As it turns out here, they both have weak hands, and they both seem to think the other has a weak hand. So in that sense, they're both right. Andrew has Queen 5 suited. He's facing another 50K here, and even though he's getting a little over 3-1, Matt's representing a hand like Queens plus, Kings plus maybe. So it's not thrilling for him to continue with Queen 5 suited, but if he does believe Matt doesn't have anything, which he clearly does, he can call, and that's what he opts to do.
My God, this is just fantastic to watch. I almost just want to watch this. I don't even want to. I'm so entranced by what I'm seeing that I'm just watching as a fan.
Deuce, deuce, 7, all black cards. That's a total whiff for both guys.
It is, but keep in mind, both of them seem to think the other one is weak. So it's not so much about the fact that they've whiffed the board. This is more a hand where they're playing each other.
They both whiff the deuce, deuce, 7 flop, and Matt fires out a really small c-bet of 35,000. This is smaller than what I would normally expect from him. While I do believe Andrew could have read into it, if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't exactly know what to think. What I wouldn't think is that it's a hand like Kings. Probably not a hand like Queens. It could be aces, and it could be a hand like Jacks or 10s that is just not really sure but wants to get some value and protection. I think it could also be a flush draw. It could also be ace deuce suited. Might make a lot of sense. He doesn't want to scare Andrew away. But Matt is somebody who doesn't have like one standard sizing, so his sizings are going to mean something, but he's a very smart player, and he's quite capable of leveling you, so you have to be careful.
And this is really a war of attrition. This is who's going to dig harder to win this hand.
Yeah. Robl won't go away for 35,000. Turn is an ace.
And folks, forget the percentages of this hand. Forget the pot odds for a second. Forget the math. This is a purely psychological poker hand. This is a war.
Right.
Ace on the turn makes things interesting. Matt fires out 50,000. And the reason this is interesting is because if Matt had a hand like kings or queens, he would no longer be betting. I think he's kind of no longer representing a lot of the hands that he was trying to represent on the flop. Now, aces, sure. Some kind of random ace-5 suited. Yeah, for sure. Ace-5 offsuit, maybe. I think that's certainly possible. So he can connect with this ace. However, he might check some of those hands, including ace-ace he might check. Andrew has no pair, no draw. And what he's thinking here is, well, I don't think Matt has anything, but the problem is if I call, Matt's very likely to just bluff shove the river, and I don't want to call with queen high. As we could see here, if Andrew were to call and Matt Kirk bluff shoved the river and Andrew called again, he'd actually lose to the bluff. So Andrew's thinking, I want to win this pot. I don't believe him, and I don't want to call. Matt Kirk bets 50,000. He's got about 120K behind this. And so Andrew can risk 170K to pick up the 330K in the pot. It only has to work about a third of the time for it to be profitable. And despite it having the potential to make him look really silly and for him to get it in completely dead, Andrew does make the hero shove here. This is one of the sickest hands that I've seen in televised poker history.
All right, I'm on one.
All in.
Wow.
Jesus.
What a hand. So much heart.
Oh, my God.
We're playing some poker.
Holy,
We're playing some poker.
that was poker.
Wow, the fact that you said all right was the best part. All right, I'm all in.
Or I was just
It's
like,
so brutal. If the river comes anything but an ace, I just fire. I've got nothing too.
I know you had nothing.
But if it comes nothing, I'm all in on the turn. It's only a ace.
You would bet so small.
It was
yeah.
so funny. I was so sure you had nothing when you re-raised Paul. I was like, but then I was sitting on the turn and I was like, this is gonna look like the stupidest hand
I was just
ever
thinking
played
that
if I
Robl-
just go all in. And he's like, call.
So this next street poker hand includes Tom Dwan and Rui Cao, two of the wildest players that I've ever played with. Both of them are capable of having anything at any point in the hand, as you can see in this pot.
I'm drunk enough.
No, everybody drink.
I'm drunk enough.
Tony,
Okay.
drink.
Can you give me a draft beer, please?
Yeah, we celebrate my maiden title.
Celebrate for you, drink.
Yeah.
They're playing the 7-deuce game, which means if you win a pot with 7-deuce, whether it's with the best hand or by bluffing, and you show it, everybody else at the table pays you $10,000. And so that's a pretty big bounty, and it forces people to play 7-deuce, whether they want to or not. And as we can see here, Tom Dwan is dealt 7-deuce. He's facing a 4K straddle, and he decides to open raise to 12,000 with 7-deuce off.
Meat.
Is it?
No.
3-6.
Bro, why do you have so many hands?
Why you always re-raise?
Now, Rui Cao has 8-7 offsuit. You do not get a bounty for winning a pot with 8-7 offsuit, and I have no idea why he decided to 3-bet this hand, but he did. I don't know if he has a read on Tom. I don't know if he's tilted. I don't know if he is just having fun, but he 3-bets the 8-7 offsuit, which is pretty wild.
Yes. First title. No shit.
Yeah.
But it's my fourth title. I mean,
3-bet and a call.
Tom has an interesting spot here. He's got a call 24,000 now, but if he wins this pot, he gets 10,000 from everybody else at the table. So I think it's going to more than make up for it. He's going to win this pot maybe 40% of the time. So I do think calling is probably better than folding here, even against a player as loose aggressive as Rui Cao. The interesting thing is whether or not he should 4-bet instead of call. When the 7-deuce game is on, it starts to get weird because once enough bets go in, if you're representing aces and 7-deuce or aces, kings and 7-deuce, you actually have 16 combos of 7-deuce. There's 16 ways to be dealt 7-deuce and only 6 ways to be dealt aces and 6 ways to be dealt kings. So if you're playing only aces and 7-deuce in a certain way where you've kind of shoveled a lot of money into the pot, you almost have 3 times as many bluffs as value hands. And if you include kings into that range, then you still have almost 1.5 times. I mean, not really, 1.3. So you can't just go wild with all of your 7-deuce, or if you do, you can get called down pretty light.
Wow,
It's
I would
good.
have. I would have thought you
happy.
had. I would have thought you had.
People want to become like me, businessman winning a title.
Of course, of course.
30K c-bet from Rui Cao. Tom with just a 7 deuce. Has not laid it down yet. Does he think about making a move because Rui Cao plays every single hand? A raise to 126,000 euro with 7 deuce, ready to show everyone.
And the flop comes down ace queen 5. Rui Cao c-bets about quarter pot, and Tom decides that floating out of position with 7 deuce on a board like this is not going to work well, so he's going to go for the check raise. I think that check folding here on ace queen 5 is probably the better play. Although, as we can see here, Rui has 8-7 offsuit, so if he's got enough hands like this, then with the added benefit of the bounty, raising 7 deuce makes sense. But you got to keep in mind, you know, when Tom's making 126K here, and he might put in another 200K on future streets, all to win 60K in bounties, like his pot odds as he goes on are getting a lot worse, and the bounty is becoming less and less relevant. So you do have to be careful of just fighting till your last breath with 7 deuce. Sometimes it's okay to just wave the white flag and give up the hand.
But Rui Cao has not folded yet.
Losing.
Is he wondering why Tom would raise on the ace queen 5 rainbow instead of trying to slow play against? Oh my god, he's calling with 8 high. He doesn't have anything.
Got deuce 7 this time.
Rui Cao with 8 high doesn't believe him, doesn't want to put in the flop 3-bet, just wants to call and see what happens on the turn. There are so many hands that you can call with that are better than 8-7 offsuit. It's really the worst hand that you can have. Any Jack 10, King 10, they're gut shots. Any pair on the board is obviously better. Even hands like 3-4 gut shots. It's really hard to have a hand worse or as bad as 8-7 offsuit on this board. These guys are not concerned with theory. They're not concerned with where they're at in their range. They're just reading each other and trying to make a play. And Rui thinks Tom's bluffing. He happens to be right, so he makes this call.
I don't understand. And the turn is an ace.
We have to play 10.
No flush draw.
How much you want, Tony?
Technically, it could be like deuce 7 versus deuce 7.
Ball.
130. You have about 500.
400,000 behind.
About a bit less than 400.
400.
Oh my, he's reaching for chips.
Start shooting all in. Elton, you should start to do a few all ins.
Do it for all ins? Yeah. I've been trying. I've been trying. I just need a couple of deuce 7s, you know? Like,
I for the new 7.
yeah, you said that already. It's actually okay not to play it.
Under the
It's
gun.
not that big a disadvantage. Yeah.
Under the gun.
Half pot bet. And Rui Cao calls of 8-7 high.
Rainbow ace hits the turn, and there's about 335K in the pot and 400K in Rui Cao's stack. So he's got a little bit over pot remaining. Tom doesn't need to bet that much in order to get all in by the river. And he does decide he wants to keep bluffing. He fires out 160K. And Rui just doesn't believe him. I don't know what his plan is. He just thinks Tom has 7 deuce, or he thinks Tom has Jack 10 and is going to check fold the river. But Rui calls with 8-7 once again. This is as wild a hand as I've ever seen.
And Rui Cao calls of 8-7 high, thinking that Tom has got nothing and he's going to steal it from him.
Is he investing like 400K to win 7?
King rolls off on the river. There's very little left to play. So Rui, I would think, has to count on Tom checking to him and then shoving in this third pot bet remaining. Now, the one thing in Rui Cao's favor is that when he calls on this ace turn, it really looks like he has something. He has so many ace-x hands. It's reasonably likely Tom will give up on some bluffs and will certainly believe him when he shoves the river.
Now it's starting to get tense in here as they realize what's going on at the table.
Tom debates shoving, decides to check. Rui Cao puts in the shove with 8 high. He's actually got the best hand, but he has to shove in case Tom has a 5, in case Tom hit a king, in case Tom just was bluffing with 10 high. What's especially interesting to me is that Rui Cao says he was calling the river shove. He says that he put Tom on 7 deuce and he was going to call with 8 high. Had it gone shove river, call with 8 high, it definitely would have been the sickest hand ever. And having played with Rui, I kind of believe him.
This is the craziest hand I've ever seen. He goes all in.
2-7. 2-7, right?
Yeah.
Why did you check then? And you
Because he snap called me if I shove.
Queen 10. Queen 10.
After you! I know you had you 7. Let's go. You shove, I call.
Oh my God.
You're fucking 8 high. You shove. I swear to God, I call. I swear to God, I call.
Normally, I like to teach you something that you could take away from these videos. I don't know how much there is to teach you, although I made some points where I could. Hopefully, you just had fun like I did. I loved reviewing these hands.
Oh, yeah.